All right, welcome back to another episode of Well, That Happened. And we are going to be talking about some crazy things that happened at work. The first story involves an interview that ends up in a gynecologist office. So with that, if you're going to stick around, and we've got some more stories too. I'm here with my friend Bill.
Hello, Rob.
And just so you guys know, I'm a recovering corporate HR person. And people told me I should write a book with all these stories.
You probably should.
I don't feel like writing a book, so this is a lot easier.
So here we are. Okay.
So I'm going to tell you some stories. Feel free to share some of your own or just laugh.
Okay.
I'm very easy. Just laugh
I can do both
at my
of
jokes.
those things, yeah.
So once upon a time, I worked actually it was my first real job. I worked out of college. I worked for my alma mater. And then I got hired as a recruiter for a certain fun-loving Dallas-based airline.
Okay.
You could probably figure that out very easily.
Yes.
And actually, I will say, that organization laid the foundation for how I operated as a professional. And I've been fortunate enough to work for some amazing companies, but the culture, the way they treated people, I've taken that with me. So I will say that. Now, on to my story. So first job I got there was I was a recruiter for flight attendants. And it's probably the most fun job I've ever had because the most bizarre people want to be flight attendants. Sometimes it's a second career, whatever, or they just want the travel benefits, all the things. So let me set the scene where we would travel around. This is back in the, 1999.
Okay.
And we would travel around the country for group interviews. And then people selected from that would be called back for another time for a second one-on-one interview. So on the panel was myself, the recruiter, a flight attendant, and a flight attendant supervisor. And we had so much fun in these interviews, but also had a difficult time remaining professional because of giggles. But in this instance, it was a group interview. So picture 30 people in basically a half circle seated, right? So it's in one of the, banquet room in a hotel. So in they walk, and I got paid to judge people on their appearance. How are they showing up? Because that flight attendant, you're going to remember them probably more than any other employee, right? You're stuck in a silver tube with them for X amount of hours.
Right.
So in they walk, and you had the people, most of them were professional. And then some kind of leaned into the stereotype that perhaps flight attendants are a bit promiscuous. So they dressed accordingly. So in walked a woman named Bonnie. Have you ever been in a meeting when you can see the room is going to turn on somebody because they talk so much? This was Bonnie. Now, I'm just going to, Bonnie walked in stilettos. I'm not lying. Hand to God. Fishnets. The mini skirt was shorter than the blazer she had on. And then a scoop neck tank top to kind of show off the girls. And big hair, it was on the back end of the 90s, right? And she was working the room from the moment she hit the door. And so she sat down right on, I think it was this side. She was right on the end closest to the table. And part of the interview was half presentation about, let me tell you what this job's really about. Make sure you want it. And the other half was they all each had to stand up and answer a question or something, and we could see how they presented themselves. So every time I would lead, I would stand up and give the presentation, and the flight attendants would chime in. So without fail, I didn't even get a sentence out. The hand went up. And it was like, I was even to the point of, yes, Bonnie.
And Bonnie's the candidate, correct?
Candidate, yes. Okay. Now, I should also mention she was she wasn't a slim woman. And I'm not fat shaming or anything, but I don't think her clothes complemented her figures. Be the best way I can put that. And the rule was you have to fit in the standard size uniforms. And I was questioning, based on my visual assessment, and the flight attendants agreed, she was pushing the larger limits of the uniform sizes. Anyway, we get through all this, right? The room's going to turn on her, but she makes it out unscathed. But the door closes and I just look at the rest of the panel. I'm like, over my dead body.
Okay.
Will that woman get hired? Because she was just overbearing, right? And all the things. So,
and you could see her doing this in the cabin
100%,
against the passengers. Yeah.
Right. If you're, she's telling them and what she's about to tell me, I would worry she would tell a passenger.
Right.
Because this means there's no critical thinking or common sense or good judgment.
No filter.
So no filter.
Yeah.
So fast forward I would travel, say 3 weeks a month doing these, and then I'd have 1 week in the office. So I'm in the office, I'm in Cube land. My phone rings randomly. Guess who it is?
Bonnie.
It's Bonnie.
Yeah.
Bonnie got hi Bonnie. Bonnie got a letter from me. This is before email, all electronic stuff. So she got a letter that started with the word unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
We thank you for your time, but you were not selected. So I turn on my corporate HR voice, ready to tell her that, I'm so sorry you're disappointed, but we have to hold candidates to certain standards. And one of them is our appearance standards, quack, quack, quack. So finally had to come up for air. And she, true to form, just dove right into that momentary pause. And she started with, I hear what you're saying. Oh,
wonderful.
Wonderful. We are aligned. This won't be so painful as I thought it was. Oh, no. I hear what you're saying, Rob. I have gained some weight recently because of some nerve damage I've sustained in my leg that has prohibited me from exercising. Marginally TMI, I would, guess, but it wasn't too bad. It's the next sentence. I sustained the nerve damage when I visited my gynecologist because I was in the stirrups and he spread my legs too far apart.
Wow.
Wow is, yes, an understatement, perhaps. So now I'm sitting there and I look across the aisle at our coordinator, Carrie, and I'm just like, oh, right now you called me because I wanted my phone to ring, right? So she called me and I'm like, Bonnie, I am so sorry. I've got to go. Best of luck to you. I hope you feel better and you can reapply in a year. But I'm just like, so I that's pretty much the end of the story, but I was so like, wow, you just told a perfect stranger your most intimate moment. And I don't know about you. I don't know what happens at the gynecologist's office. I don't want to know.
Never been in one.
No, never been, never, no, just no. Right.
Well, and I think to your point around the unfiltered, right? Like it's you get to say to yourself, if she volunteered that information as easily as she did, in a follow-up to a candidate letter, essentially saying, thank you, no thank you. Fast forward and imagine what she might have volunteered or shared in the cabin with a passenger.
100%. Yeah. Just less is more.
Yeah. So you play that out.
I hope, I wish Bonnie well. I hope she's doing well. Oh, you know what? I will tell you a story. And this is random synaptic misfire that popped into my head. So this goes back to my college days. So I went to school in Florida at a place I'm very proud of, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
Yep.
I was going to be a pilot. The world, my life took a different turn, which is great. I've had a great career. But in Daytona, back in the day, remember, MTV Spring Break, all the things, right?
Oh, yeah.
So in the springtime, we would get exhausted by all the things, race week, bike week, it was a week. Everything was a week, right? So, but for our spring break, most of the students went away. Like we were like, we're done with Daytona. We do this every weekend. We're done, right? Well, I worked in the mall, and my buddy Jim, he wasn't going anywhere either. So kind of out of our friend group, he and I were the lone people standing. And I should know Jim Strait, Army, ROTC, great guy. I'm not. We're very opposite, but we're actually still keep in touch to this day. So anyway, I got off work and we're going to go down to Beachside, which is where all the bars are and the hotels is right on the beach. And so much drinking. So much so we need food. We ordered Domino's to the parking lot that we were standing in.
Like any good college kid.
And yes, exactly. And then consumed that. And she goes, we need to go to one of your bars.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. So there's one.
In Daytona?
In Daytona. It was a place called the Barracks.
Okay.
It had a military theme.
Appropriate feel. Yeah.
It was a little dark. So we walk in, and this is before I dated the bartender, which was such a bad idea.
Never date bartenders.
Never date bartenders. But I knew some of the bartenders after I've been there a few times. And I walked up and I ordered a couple beers from Jason, and I turn around and Jim's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is bad. Drunk straight guy lost.
Oh, he was drunk as well.
We were feeling no pain. Yeah.
Okay.
Ish. So now I'm like, where is he? So I'm searching, and everything. I'm like, oh God, I hope he's not in the bathroom. What's happening? Right. So I check the bathroom. No. So I look over and I see, Courtney Lamore. Courtney's 6'4" plus stilettos and a bikini. In Courtney's defense, she looks very convincing as a woman. Her voice probably gives her away a bit, and she was set to go on. Well, he's over there. He's got her kind of pinned up against the wall with like the hand up, right? And, telling her why she's the, beautiful, all the things, right? And I go over and I'm like, hi, Courtney. And she's like, hi. And he's still not getting it. And I whispered in his ear what was happening. He's like, no. Yeah. And she's about to go perform.
Yeah.
So he'd never been in this environment, but I just will never forget him being lost in the gay bar, and being very comfortable with himself. Like, he's secure in his manhood and his heterosexuality, but it was just like, you might get an education you don't want.
Well, and he was an army guy, so being in the barracks is probably not the worst.
It might have been not
the worst place,
familiar
but
setting.
Slightly different barracks than he was probably used to, I imagine. But yeah, I mean, I think as a military man myself,
yes,
and as a gay military man myself, also Army, ROTC, I mean, heck, a lot has changed, but I can probably think about a time when years ago, the first time I ever was in a gay bar and somebody recognized me.
Oh.
And I recognized that person, and we were both in the military. We both panicked. We both literally ran almost like the cartoons you would see where people, two characters recognize each other and completely run the other way.
Yeah.
And I can remember that like it was yesterday. But what was interesting about that experience was I had friends with me that immediately tried to stop me from running out of this bar in the middle of the night, and said to me essentially, well, chill out, because if he's here for the same reason you're here.
Yeah.
So you essentially cancel each other out, and you now have to defend you now have to like protect each other.
It could be mutually assured destruction.
Mutually assured destruction. Now, there was some truth in that, but fast forward to years later, we've become friends. And honestly, I'm not proud of the fact that in many cases, he had to do the same thing. We kind of had to avoid each other, even though we were essentially in the same unit. We probably needed to be more allies to each other and help each other out, but we didn't know how to do that back then. This was a long time ago, and Don't Ask, Don't Tell was at the height. But yeah, it was a little bit like a cartoon where your feet are going, you're doing that thing, and you try and bolt out of there like Roadrunner. And it's unfortunate, but you learn from it, and
yeah.
I'm glad that it's no longer the case where you have to do that, where you sort of have to have your head on a swivel. But I now have many more stories about, not recently, but over the years, going to gay bars with straight friends, and they have a blast. They have a wonderful time.
Totally.
In fact, they probably have more fun than some of us do.
Yes.
Which is great. I mean,
and I can't like the idea of going to a gay bar right now. No,
I couldn't do it.
I'm exhausted.
I mean,
I need a nap already.
Yeah, like pretty much. And good, bad, or otherwise, I think the pandemic really changed a lot of that for some people. I cannot imagine being in a crowded bar. I cannot imagine being in a crowded anything right now. I recently went to a Lakers game down in Los Angeles, and to give you an idea of how much of an introvert I am, we had amazing tickets, amazing seats. It was great to sort of see the opening, and everybody was cheering. It was way too loud for me. And I chose, instead of sitting in the very small seat and cheering, I chose to walk 4.5 miles around the arena and get my steps in. It's like I really wanted to get my steps in. I'm one of those aura ring wearing people, and I like to get my metrics. And so I walked basically almost 5 miles around the arena. Had a wonderful time. I think the staff and some of the security were very confused. They just kept seeing me over and over again, and they probably were talking to each other and trying to do a bit of a security assessment on who is this guy that is walking very, very quickly around the arena. But it's a great way to see an arena. So
See, I would have just done that because I have no interest in basketball.
I mean, LeBron was playing that night, and Scottie Pippen Jr. was playing that night, and so it was fun to see some of those people and cheer. But and the Laker girls. I mean, I'm a Paula Abdul fan back in the day. That's where she started, was as a Laker girl. So hey, like, I gave my tribute, and I was like, okay, it's great to be here. Hey, LeBron. Hey, Scottie Pippen Jr. I think they were playing the Memphis group, and I'm out. Like, and so, hey, it's like one of these things where years ago I probably would have been at the arena and then at the gay bar that night. Instead, I'm getting my steps in, and I can't wait to get back to bed.
But
welcome to aging.
that actually reminds me of a story I told yesterday. I'll tell it again. So, are you familiar with an organization called Out and Equal?
Absolutely. I've been to their conferences a few times. Yeah.
As have I, and I describe it to people who don't know what it is, as basically 5,000 corporate power gays.
Yep.
Yes. And they do fantastic work. My bestie works there. Hi, Jean Marie. And, they do so much great work. It's got the sessions, it's got the grand ballroom and all the things, right? And it's got the expo, right? So I was there back, let's call it 2006.
What city was it in? Do you recall?
This year it was in, the year in question was Austin.
Austin, okay.
So we were there, and I was there with a certain soda and potato chip company that I worked at. And I'd say there was probably like 50 of us probably there. We sent a good contingent there. Anyway, so on whatever night it was, there was kind of a sanctioned bar that hey, everybody's going to go here. And this bar was called Oil Can Harry's.
Yes, I've heard of Oil Can Harry's.
And nice place. And so people went there, and it's got the traditional bar, kind of high tops, and then you've got the dance floor, and then you've got the patio. So I get there, and we got there probably early. I mean, for bars, 9:00 is early, right? So I see my friend Sam from American Airlines at the time. And so he and I were going to catch up, and we went out to the back on the patio. And so we were out there a long time. Sam's one of those people that you just kind of keep talking to,
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Will, I know the light went out behind me.
I was like, what happened?
That was the light. Anyway, but I digress to the story. So we're out there for probably 2 or 3 hours, 4 or 5 drinks in, right? So we decide to leave and go back to the hotel. And to get out, you have to skirt the dance floor, basically. And as most gay dance clubs are, there's a pedestal. There's a box that somebody's dancing on, right? Probably not wearing much. In this case, there was one at each corner of the dance floor. So just as I'm looking up to see the person dancing there and thinking to myself, they have a nice pick a body part.
Pick a feature.
I realize it's one of our employees. Now, to be more descriptive, I could have gotten to could have been okay with no shirt. Probably not the best choice because, by the way, there were some allies there. There wasn't all gay people.
Sure,
so
Out and Equal brings a lot of allies. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
So there he is. He also has a snake tattoo that starts on his neck, wraps his entire body all the way down a leg to the ankle. He's not wearing a lick of clothing, except his hand covering his junk. So I see this, and now again, I'm pretty buzzed. And I told Sam, he's like, we just need to. Oh, and by the way, on the other pedestal across from him was his, I don't know if it was boyfriend, husband, trick of the night, whatever you want to call it, right? He's dancing over there in his underwear, but he was also an employee. Not my employees, but I'm the HR guy.
Yeah.
Right? I'm kind of the police. So we decide to leave. So next morning, I go down to the expo. Who do you think's on the first list to man the booth? These two bozos.
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, you need to leave. And they're like, why? Everybody's in here has seen most of you.
All of you in some cases.
And now they reassociate you with the company. This is a problem.
Yeah.
So they left, and they kind of hung their head down. And then of course I had to take one for the team and be the early man the booth. So I was telling my friend this, I still don't remember if we actually like got them in trouble. I don't think I narked on them back in the office. I was just like,
probably not back in the day.
No, but really no common sense or good judgment.
Well, I mean, I remember my first Out and Equal conference. This was years ago. It was actually the same year that Don't Ask, Don't Tell ended.
Oh, wow.
Was lifted, I should say. And so I was actually invited by my employer at the time because I just told my employer, I just come out, and my employer was super supportive and said, this is really historic, frankly, and we would love for you to go to this conference. I didn't know anything about Out and Equal. I'd never heard of it. And so I'm like, oh, okay, what's an Out and Equal? Like, let's go. And so I think it was in Dallas that year. And I went, and brand new to this equality, there's 5,000 people. And so I share a story, like in some room on some, I wasn't on the panel, but I would just, shared a story. And next thing I know, a whole camera crew is coming up and decides to say, hey, we just heard this. Would you like to tell your story on camera? And I said, what do you mean on camera? Now I'm like baby gay at this point. I'm like baby gay, still in the military. Like I don't think the ink was dry yet on President Obama's declaration of lifting this, right? And they want to film me and have me tell my story. And so there was a series back then, Out and Equal, you probably know, I think it was called Get Your Story Out. And we went outside, the cameras came up, the mics came up, and they said, tell your story. It's so, what's fascinating looking back on that now is I couldn't have stayed in the closet if I wanted to at that point. Like, I told the story, it was totally authentic. I spoke from my heart. And now when you Google me, the first thing that comes up is that story. So people see it, whether you want to or not. And I don't think I could have planned that sort of baptism by jumping in the deep end of Out and Equal. Fast forward a couple of years later, I go back to another Out and Equal conference, and it's in Baltimore, and a hurricane hits.
Sure.
And when you think about the Out and Equal, the concept of Out and Equal and 5,000 people getting together, and then a hurricane comes and 95% of those people can't get there. I felt really, really bad, but it also ended up being an amazing experience. They essentially had to curtain off most of the property that would have taken up all the booths and everything else. And it ended up being like when we came down from our rooms post-hurricane, because the hurricane happened that night, they didn't want to like cancel the programming for the people that were there, all, 13 of us. And so we had Celise Berry, and it was like Celise and like 13 of us sitting there having breakfast and trying to. But I felt bad because like none of the remarks had been changed. So they were written from a place of like, say this to inspire a room of 5,000 people, right? And continue. And so there's 13 people.
Well, lemonade out of lemons.
Right. And it ended up being a wonderful networking experience because you met people that you never would have met in a crowd of 5,000 people. They would have been on stage
before, right?
But I also felt really bad for the people that probably wanted to turn on their Grindr app and like find 5,000 entry points. And there was none of that. Like there was just, the 13 people that you're staring in this room for the next 2 days. Yeah. I still found it to be an amazing experience. I really liked it. But hey, you roll with the punches, and it was a very different Out and Equal.
Well, that same thing happened this year. They were in Florida.
That's right.
And the day before that hurricane, I don't even remember, Martin?
Yeah. I forget the name at this point. Yeah.
They canceled it, and people had already started arriving.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I think that's going to happen in life, right? You can't control the weather, and but those Out and Equal stories, yeah.
Well, that's all we've got time for today. Be sure to check out part 2 of my chat with Bill. In this video right here, we will chat about naked pilots, process servers, and people having sex in the mall. Tune in. It's a conversation you don't want to miss. In the meantime, if you had as much as fun with these stories as Bill and I did, be sure to like and subscribe. Also, let us know what you think in the comments and share some of your stories as well. Until next time, this is Well, That Happened.